I'm going to entitle this video justifying my thoughts on Tony Bellew. I've got a few new commenters to the channel. I've got Claire, who's my #1 fan. I've got another guy who thinks I'm a moron who knows nothing about boxing. He's probably got one of the two right. But I just wanted to do another video on the Bellew situation. Largely because, you know, with all this negative feedback, I have to consider, have I not expressed myself very eloquently? Could I have done a better job of explaining what I actually mean? So I wanted to look at a few areas with which I've criticised Tony Bellew and make my point of view clear. You know, let me start by talking about the sweatsuit training. Now, a number of people have said that this was a pretty stupid comment from myself because a lot of boxers, even the likes of Floyd Mayweather, train wearing a sweatsuit, and it's just part and parcel of the game, and I shouldn't read too much into it. And I appreciate that sweatsuit training is very, very common. I'm not a boxer of Tony Bellew's stature. I've had some experience in the amateur game, and I'm a regular at certain gyms, so I've certainly hung around with people who at the very least know what they're talking about, even if I don't. But I do appreciate that sweatsuit training is common. I know, as someone pointed out, that people who would be considered world-class boxers, Floyd Mayweather, etc., might use it. What I would say is, for someone like Tony Bellew, who is moving up from light heavyweight to cruiserweight, which is perhaps the most significant weight to jump, where the weight class goes from 175 to 200 pounds, I found it slightly strange that he'd be resorting to sweatsuit training. Yes, I do appreciate that it's commonplace, but that doesn't mean it's ideal. Just because it's regular, it doesn't mean it's right. Now, sweatsuit training, predominantly, as the name suggests, is for the purpose of sweating, losing weight through dehydrating. That ties in very nicely with Tony Bellew at the weigh-in today. You'll notice that after he weighed in, he is seen taking drink after drink after drink. I think I watched it live on Sky Sports News, and I think he's seen with no less than 3 different drinks within 10 minutes of the weigh-in. You don't see Nathan Cleverly behaving like that. Now, that suggests to myself that he's cut weight through dehydration. Possibly not the most outlandish remark if you consider him necking water after the weigh-in and consider the fact that he was training in a sweatsuit. Now, what I don't get, okay, and I'm not someone who thinks you need a beautiful six-pack to be a great boxer. I have in the past criticised the likes of Anthony Joshua for being too muscle-bound. A boxer wants to be light, a boxer wants to be able to move. You don't want to be this heavy-set, muscular guy. I get that. But Tony Bellew was visibly flabby today. He was even more visibly flabby. He's improved actually, but he was even more visibly flabby in the Valerie Brudov fight. Today at the weigh-in, he made a big thing about rubbing his stomach like a fat man. Now, surely it would have been better for Tony Bellew, ahead of arguably the biggest fight of his life, if he had maybe come into the ring, or come into the weigh-in, should I say, with 1 or 2 pounds less fat on him. Not because he needs a six-pack, not because you need to be cut up to win a fight like this, but wouldn't it have been more healthy if he'd come in with a slightly lower body fat percentage and not had to dehydrate, not had to starve himself of water the day before a fight? I know it's commonplace, I know boxers do that regularly, But Tony Bellew is someone who's just stepped up from £175 to £200. If there's anyone out there who didn't need to dehydrate for a fight, it's these two. They've just made the most significant step up in weight you're likely to make in a professional boxing ring. And for me, it seems a surprising tactic to dehydrate yourself, do sweatsuit training, have to net pints of water after the weigh-in, if you're not coming in with a low body fat percentage. To me, that just seems strange. My thought process is this fight will likely go 12 rounds. If that is the case, rounds 9, 10, 11, 12, will Bellew feel it? That he's gone through dehydration 24, 36, 48 hours before the fight? Possibly. People have also criticised me for calling Tony Bellew domestic level. I have said on numerous occasions that I view him as a British level fighter, or at best European level fighter. Now Nathan Cleverly, like him or not, has held a version, and a recognised version, the WBO version, of the world light heavyweight title. Now I appreciate initially he picked the belt up with an interim version. He didn't fight a defending champion. But even if we take his fight against Najib Mohammadi for the interim world light heavyweight title out of the picture, even if we remove that, then he still had in total 6 fights for the WBO version of the light heavyweight title. That would suggest he's a world level boxer. Anyone who comes to the ring 6 times as a world champion should be classed as a world level boxer. Now, if I said to you that there's this light heavyweight fighter out there who got dropped by Bob Adjusaf, who got dropped by Oval McKenzie, who drew with Isaac Chilemba, who lost to Nathan Cleverly, who got stopped by Sergei Kovalev, who has never held a world title. Would you consider him to be a world-class fighter? Let's be honest, Tony Bellew's fought for a world title twice, and both times he's come up short. He's been in very, very tough fights with guys who are British level, Oval McKenzie, Bob Adjusaf. He doesn't have, for me, the form Nathan Cleverly has coming into this fight. From my eyes, it's not actually a controversial statement to say that Bellew is domestic level, because to my eye, you're domestic level until you prove otherwise. The guy's fought at a higher level, undoubtedly. Cleverly's a higher level. He lost to Cleverly. Adonis Stevenson is a higher level. He lost to Adonis. Isaac Chilemba may be a higher level. I know he beat Chilemba once, but he drew with Chilemba. You know, this ties in with what I'm saying about Bellew. He's kind of like a Paul Smith level fighter. You know, better than a really strong British champion, real good British champion. Maybe a European champion, but not quite world level. I mean, I don't think it's controversial to say that Tony Bellew hasn't proved he's a world level fighter. I don't think it's controversial to say, in an ideal world, Bellew wouldn't be dehydrating and wearing a sweatsuit before a fight. You know, I know people say I'm a moron for making those statements, but I don't think I'm being ultra controversial saying this. I've also been critical of Bellew's chin. I mean, let's be honest, both Cleverly and Bellew have been stopped when fighting at the sort of tier 1 level on world boxing. You can forgive Bellew getting stopped against Stevenson. You can accept that. He doesn't need to go the distance against Stevenson necessarily to beat Nathan Cleverly. In the same way you can forgive Clev's loss against Kovalev. However, if we take that fight aside, has Clev really given you cause for concern over his chin? I mean, we've heard the rumours about Clev sparring with the likes of Tyson Fury, Derek Chisora when he used to be with Frank Warren back in the day. You know, has this guy really given you cause for concern over his chin, taking aside that Sergey Kovalev fight? To my eye, not really. To my eye, he's got an underrated chin. Has Tony Bellew given you cause for concern over his chin? Possibly. Let's look at Valery Brudov. He's 37 years old. He's a decent yardstick. He's not a terrible fighter. He's currently ranked the number 87th cruiserweight in the world. Brudov had Bellew in all sorts of trouble in the 7th round of their fight. Fair play to Bellew, he came through it. Now Cleverly's not a massive puncher, but if the 87th ranked cruiserweight on the planet, by Boxrec, admittedly, but the 87th ranked cruiserweight can have you in that sort of bother, it's safe to assume that any previous world champion could potentially hurt you in a fight. We know what happened with Overlord McKenzie. We know what happened with Adonis Stevenson. We know what happened with Bob Adjusaf. My point is, Cleverly's given us cause for concern on one isolated incident against a world-class fighter, arguably a pound-for-pound fighter. Similarly, Tony Bellew has given us cause for concern against a pound-for-pound fighter. The worrying thing is he's also given us cause for concern against the 87th ranked cruiserweight in the world, over McKenzie, and he got knocked down by Bob Adjusaf. He was in real trouble in the McKenzie fight. In the Adjusaf fight, yeah, he probably wasn't in trouble. But nevertheless, I know Cleverly isn't the biggest puncher in the world, but if Bob Adjusaf can knock you down at light heavyweight, don't rule it out that Nathan Cleverly can cause some damage. Again, similar to my comments about the Sweatsuit training, similar to my comments regarding Tony Bellew's sort of world-class or domestic level, I don't view this as controversial. It's quite a clear-cut statement to my eye that Tony Bellew may not be the most durable guy in the cruiserweight division. I think the other area I've criticised Bellew is his power. I mean, Bellew, he can hit, he can hurt you. I'm not saying Bellew is a light puncher. I'm not saying Bellew doesn't hit hard. And I'm not saying he doesn't have the potential to hurt Nathan Cleverly, or other cruiserweights for that matter. But we need to dispel, some of the rumours about Cleverly being this sort of serious level puncher that he seems to think he is, and screaming that I have power and all of that sort of stuff. I mean, the guy can whack a bit, there's no doubt about that, but he's not. I mean, for example, I'll give one example. He was talking the other day about how he was able to knock out Edison Miranda, because Edison Miranda is a very powerful and durable guy. Fair play to him, he did take out Edison Miranda. But Lucien Boutte, who at the time was fighting the super middleweight division, and is not known for being an electric puncher, got Edison Miranda out of there in 3 rounds. Arthur Abraham, somewhere between a middleweight and a super middleweight, was able to get Edison Miranda out in 4 rounds. Yet the massive punching, massive cruiserweight Tony Bellew took 9 to get him out of there. My point is that Bellew can hit. If Cleverly stands there with his chin out, he can get, he could get hurt. I'm not disputing that Bellew has power, but he isn't a world-class puncher. I mean, look at Adonis Stevenson. Look at Sergei Kovalev. These are world-class punchers, and we saw what they were able to do to this level of opposition. On an elite level, Bellew is not someone you consider to be a big hitter. Yes, he can land a punch and hurt you, but he's not a frightening puncher. He's not, let's not forget, Cleverly's already done 12 rounds with him. Cleverly's been in the ring with Sergei Kovalev. He's not going to be scared of Bellew's power. He got through 12 rounds with Bellew comfortably the first time. This is a guy who's felt the best of Sergei Kovalev. He's not going to be shaking in his boots about Tony Bellew landing. So I wanted to make my thoughts clear on this. I wanted to make my thoughts clear about the weight situation, about the level I consider Bellew, about Bellew's chin, and about Bellew's power. I hope in the video that I've explained this. I hope I've made my points of view clear. And perhaps naively, I don't consider any comments I've made to be overly controversial. I think it's a matter of common logic that Bellew doesn't have the best chin, or the best power, or isn't a top level fighter. I think it's a matter of logic. If a fighter can make the weight without dehydrating, he should do. People say I'm obsessed with Nathan Cleverly. I think someone said that I'm in love with Calzaghe, in love with Cleverly. Yeah, I'm fans of both of them. Calzaghe was an idol of mine growing up, certainly. But I'm not such fans of Cleverly or Calzaghe that I wouldn't pick against them if the time was right. If Nathan Cleverly was fighting someone I considered to be world class, I'd seriously consider the fight. I don't just think Cleverly's going to walk through people at cruiserweight, but I think he is going to have too much for Tony Bellew. This will probably be my last video on the subject until after the fight. And make no mistake, if Bellew gets the job done, I'll give him serious credit. If Bellew gets the job done, it'll be the strongest piece of form on his resume. I don't dislike Tony Bellew as a person. I think at times he's come across well in the build-up. I think he's quite humorous. I think he's more intelligent than he lets on. And I think at heart he's a nice family guy. He's not someone I want to do badly. And if he gets Nathan Cleverly's scalp, I'll give him all the credit, and I'll admit I was wrong. But at this stage, probably about 24 hours before the fight, I think Cleverly's going to have far, far too much for him. Let me hear your thoughts. I don't get upset if someone swears at me. I don't get upset if someone says I'm a moron. I enjoy the banter. I've got an exceptionally boring life, and it brings some sort of excitement to have these comments coming through. So please don't hold back. Claire, let me hear from you. Thanks very much for watching.